Yeah, he
Thank you
loves
very
that.
much.
Got it?
The
Yeah.
the separate it says I did for you.
Yeah, yeah. And you're going right now.
I need to check you out.
Is anybody on there yet?
Not yet.
Okay, good.
Oh yeah, there he is. Did you create an event for this one?
All right.
For today?
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start. We started just a touch late as we were trying to get our Facebook live stream, so if there's anyone out there in Facebook land, welcome. Welcome to everybody to our second meeting. If you would, to start off, I've got the link there. You should be able to have access to it. And if you would go ahead and, sorry, I'm unnaturally scrolling on my iPad. If you go ahead and follow the attendance procedures if you haven't done so already. Welcome anyone that hasn't been to one of our meetings before. And we'll jump right into approving the minutes. Motion?
Second.
Second? Fast. All right. And Lena, if you'd give us our treasury report, please.
If you could scroll up. Okay, so we started the last meeting with a balance of $1,188.20. We've had $630 worth of deposits, and I can say that 6 schools paid with Cheddar Up, and that was awesome because all I do is I go in, I say withdrawal, 2 days later it's posted as a Cheddar Up deposit to checking account. So that was very nice and very easy. So I thanks to Sarah for giving us that idea because it's from my side it works great. I can see who deposited, when they deposited, and literally I just click a button and then 2 days later we've got that money. We did have to pay for the end of the year party. That was $252.35, and it was time to purchase checks for MAIS TEC for the few times that we do write checks, and that was $18.20. So our balance right now is $1,547.65. And those are all of the schools that have paid. We did have 2 schools that, since the last meeting, that were removed from our mailing list and have been re-added, and they joined us, so we are very welcome for them to come back.
Who is that? I know.
That was CBHS and
FACS.
That's a great list.
So, list, I think for dues is really looking good in terms of, I think this is the largest group we've had since I've been treasurer. So, I'm excited.
22 schools represented. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so kind of going into our old business, we had discussed and we finally were able to purge the list on the 6th of October. And when we did that, I emailed those heads that were being removed so that they could pass along to someone just in case we didn't have an accurate email address, and we could make sure that if they wanted to be a member school, they had the opportunity. And so, like Lena said, we were able to get at least 2 schools to kind of come back on board, which is great. I'm still kind of, well, we've got the MAIS TEC Preferred Vendor Survey. Both of those are links. The one is the survey. Please go in and fill out, some of your favorite vendors, service providers. That list, will grow as a tool for us the more we use it and the more we all kind of contribute to it. I think it can serve as a good kind of consolidated source. It's filterable, so you can kind of look for the exact service that you're looking for. I went in and put a few, and the only cumbersome thing to make it filterable really is to, you have to fill out a separate form for kind of each entry that you want to do. So please, take some time to go in there and do that. Let's see if it will let me.
Am I missing, Justin, how you see it?
Yeah. So the second link is the spreadsheet. It should be. This link here should be this should be the, or I messed it up. Let's see. I'll fix that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there
I'll
a second
fix it
link?
right now,
Yeah.
But it should take you to, it should take you to this. So, but I'll look at that and I'll fix that in a minute so everyone has that link. Because then you can filter for your category, your vendor category of what you're kind of looking for. And I'll go in also and kind of see if I see any of the others start to populate, and if there's something that I missed in the in the long list of options for vendor kind of category, I'll go ahead and start adding those to the list so we don't have a bunch of others, and that way it's more effective now. And I'll update and change those and edit those as we go. So yeah, so it'd be great if you go in there, take a couple minutes, throw in a couple, as you kind of go along, or as you get to a great interaction with a vendor, you just do it at that moment, while you're kind of going through your normal daily routine. The other old business piece is the old MAIS website is still up. I finally reached out to Google, and this is did I say MAIS TEC? The MAIS, the Maine Memphis Areas Association of Independent Schools website is still up. We currently have 2 right now. I finally contacted Google. Google said because it's owned in a personal account, there's no way to find out actually who has it. But so yesterday we went through the process of reporting it as abuse, as kind of like mimicking the association to get it removed. So hopefully that process will happen, because I couldn't track down who had it. No one knew it was from
Do you still need contact info for Julian?
No, I don't. Because that all happened yesterday, and I just hadn't.
Okay.
We've just gone to the next thing, and hopefully Google will, take that site down for us. New business. This was brought up last week, or not last week, but at our last meeting, of how we can get our system admins, engineering, help desk folks together. It's hard I know when we're off site, for everybody to kind of come along to one of these meetings. Although the next meeting that I'm planning in February is going to be more of kind of a roundtable, special interest group, kind of more discussion of like what are some great things that you've kind of stumbled upon, but also what are you working on, what are you tackling right now, and kind of help each other out and kind of problem solve each other and kind of lean on each other to get some of our experiences and expertise and kind of share. So that would be a great meeting for those folks to be there. But also, do we want to try and think about setting up a lunch or sometime that's more feasible for them to go while we're still at school and can kind of put out the fires in their stead? So that's something I kind of wanted to open up. If anyone has any suggestions, or if you feel like that would be of interest to help kind of get that part of our departments more involved, because we do want to support those people as well in our departments, not just the education instructional side. Anyone have any ideas? I just kind of wanted to brainstorm, see what everyone thought, because I know this came to me from at least one source.
We've discussed that multiple times.
Yeah.
They wanted to have a separate little subgroup.
Right.
And we
right.
kind of...
Well, that was when CDHS, who was it? Joe, yeah.
Right.
He kind of wanted to do that, and that's where that voice came from. And I think the lunch thing good, because it's we could still be there rather than this. But in my letter next week, or coming in January, when I send that out, I'll kind of like say what we're doing and try and encourage that maybe at least for that one meeting we can get some more involvement. If anybody has any other ideas. I've gotten a couple other suggestions and emails for meeting topics, which is great. I love that. Send me your recommendations or suggestions or all that kind of stuff, because that really helps. The other new business is John and I explored a field trip option for later in the year that we ultimately decided would not be really a great fit for this group. But I wanted to at least let you know about this vendor in town. They do a lot of managed services. They're Apple certified for warranty repairs, so that's great. Now that there was a local company in town that did it, I can't remember the name because I didn't use them at the time, but they no longer service, or they're no longer in business. So they'll do Apple, they'll do Chromebooks, anything. They're pretty much a full shop. But Frank Barticelli is the account executive that helped us out. If you want a tour up there, you're more than welcome to reach out to them. They're super nice guys, but they do purchasing, managed services, systems design, all that kind of stuff if you need, some help with that. But I just thought I'd mention it. They took the time to show us, but we ultimately didn't feel like it was a good fit for a field trip.
It's next to that. If you're familiar with Ingram Micro, that big, humongous warehouse up in Millington, that they're the distribution point for a lot of tech companies in this region. And when that guy came, cold called, and talked to me, I thought that's what we were going to be touring, was the big Ingram Micro facility. I even asked him that, and anyway, it turns out that Unistar Sparco is located next to the big Ingram Micro facility, and they have a really good relationship with Ingram Micro. And he said that if you ordered something or needed something, in a rush or next day, they often walk over and get it as late as 8 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And as long as they can get it to FedEx, by, did he say 10 or 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
Then, their customers are always happy because they get it the next day because they have that relationship with Ingram Micro. But when we got in there, it is a good place, and it was a very worthwhile our time to go up there. But it is a small facility, and it's not like the huge. I thought we were going to go into that warehouse, and there was going to be a huge imaging room and a huge repair room, and it's kind of all in one big room in Unistar Sparco. So we didn't think it would be appropriate to take a large group of 25 people to see it. But he's very open. If you want to go up and see it yourself and find out what they do, he's very open to it. The president of the company spent 2.5 hours with us. I mean, he's the one that guided the tour and sat down, talked with us, had lunch, and I mean, it's a good company for sure, I think.
Yeah. It's just another local option for sourcing various services, products, and not necessarily a sales pitch, but I wanted to acknowledge their time by at least sharing what we learned on that trip. And if you have an idea about a field trip that we can explore, again, pass that my way, because we're looking for something that we can do in May, but we just haven't kind of stumbled upon what that might be. And then the last thing I know we talked about this listserv, but I find this to be one of the most valuable tools. If you're not a member of this listserv, especially your back of the house folks too, I mean, this is a great resource. It's free. You get tons of, every topic that you can think of in a private school, education, tech department comes up, from policies to acceptable use policies versus, to I'm looking to restructure this switch or what, everything flows through there, and it's a great sounding board, and you get responses very quickly from really, really, really excellent folks throughout the country. So I would strongly recommend that. I think I've mentioned it before, but it wasn't on the minutes that I could see, so I just wanted to throw it up there and give you the link so you could join it if you wanted to. Our meeting dates remaining are going to be at the Collegiate School of Memphis with Nathaniel Warren. He's up there, over there, on February 7th. And then April 3rd, St. Mary's will be hosting, and we'll be in the new building by then, so we'll kind of do a little tour there, and we have a presentation lined up by one of our instructional technology folks. Let's see. Yeah, if you have a field trip recommendation, please let me know. Let's see, conferences. We have the list that we've kind of built. We've talked about these a fair amount. Are there any that are missing that you've learned about that we want to add to this list so everyone knows?
We just announced our summer conference for
Okay.
Laws and Learning, so do you want me to just
Yes,
add it on?
please. Yes.
And I don't know if y'all saw, I sent an email out yesterday. Apple's doing a little workshop here on the 12th. Met with Anthony the other day, so he said they've got a lot of bringing in some vendors, and I think it's going to be a good learning experience if you use any Apple products or if you're interested in them.
I'd be curious to know if anybody's going up to BGA this weekend for that, or Monday for the TAIS event. Anybody going to that?
Brian's going.
Okay, great. I think Whitney's going to be there, and I know I'm going. We have a teacher presenting, so I don't know who else is going to be there. It's going to be small. There's about 100 folks registered for it, so it's going to be an intimate event. But the session list looks pretty good. So if you haven't given any thought and you're not doing anything Monday, you could drive up to Nashville to Franklin and go to the TAIS event at BGA. So just keep that in mind.
And then we have our committees. If you ever need to reach out to anyone, that's just kind of listed there.
And Justin,
yeah.
Can you go back one more time?
Yeah.
Y'all have responded because the guy told me that that thing that I've been sending out about that tech tour that's going to be at the Peabody coming up. It's not up there, but I just wanted to refresh you, remind you of that. It's going to be on the 7th. It looks like at the Peabody. It's a morning event. It's from Tyranny is the name of the company, but they're bringing in, there's like 20 major vendors that are going to be there, mostly AV type people, but it's going to be a good, and it's like you're going to be walking into an exhibit hall basically for these 20 top vendors, and it's free, and I'm sure they have breakfast and some snack or lunch stuff. So if you've not seen that,
Can you put the link there, because you have to sign up for it?
Yeah, I will.
They
I
do
will.
want
I'll
you
do
to
that while you're
register.
talking, or while
Yeah.
one is presenting. Yeah, I'll do that.
I know our team is planning on.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I'm not advocating tyranny. I mean, I've never bought a thing from them, but if they're bringing in resources that you wouldn't see unless you went to ISTE or somewhere like that, we might as well take advantage of that. So it's coming up next Thursday at the Peabody.
Anything else? Great. All right, so that closes kind of our business portion of the meeting. We're going to invite Dr. Wanda Terrell up. She's earned that, right?
Yes.
And she's going to be helping us with getting started with Google Apps Script, which I'm excited about. So do we have a motion to close? We'll go ahead and close the meeting, and then we'll go into the PD portion.
Motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion. Second. Excellent. All right.
So the link to the slide deck is in the notes. I will show it in just a moment. So this link will get you, so this link will get you to a template version of this slide deck. So if you want to make your own copy, just click on Use Template. I'm doing that more often these days than doing the /copy. It just kind of saves an extra step, and it lets you go ahead and see what it is that you're copying before you click copy. So if you're interested in how to do that, it's not a part of my session, but I'll show you. There's an extension called Sir Links-a-Lot that makes it easy. And so once you have Sir Links-a-Lot installed, it looks like the little glasses with a little hat. If you're on a Google link at that point, you can click Sir Links-a-Lot. It gives you some options, and you can click Template, and it changes that modified URL to what you would have to have. And if you click Copy Link to Keyboard or Clipboard, or Copy Shortener Link to Clipboard, it gives you the version that creates the template version. So it's like getting the copy, but you can see the copy. So that's a handy little link. All right, so this slide deck is from a presentation I did a couple of weeks ago, since I was a last minute thing. I glanced through it, and there are no references to the Arkansas Conference on Technology, which I did this at. But so know that it's a little bit more formal than I would generally do here. So I'm just going to kind of go through some of this stuff. So thank you for being in my session today. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of this stuff because it would take a full hour, but so I'm going to just very briefly talk about what Google Apps Script is, talk about the macros in Google Sheets that kind of are a good bridge to getting into that. I've got some templates that you can use that'll kind of walk you through a basic process. I'll point you to some additional references if you want to get to that. No, you cannot leave. Okay. But I always do the law of 2 feet when I'm at a conference. And I don't have to introduce myself. I'm not a Google Apps Script expert, but I have some expertise in it. So I use it quite a bit in my role as Director of Technology for Lakeland. So you will find that this kind of works on an iPad, but not really. If you really want to get hands-on with this, a laptop is better. And some EDU accounts may have limitations on what kind of access you can get to the app script side of things. So if you run into issues with that, it could be limitations on the domain. So when I'm at a conference, I always suggest that people use their personal account just to get past that. So Google Apps Script is a JavaScript library that allows you to use regular JavaScript, but also Google Apps Script to do all the things you can do with JavaScript, but also interact with the Google services. So you can do things with a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. You think about add-ons for Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Sheets. Those are built using Google Apps Script. So you can also connect to other APIs, so other services. We're not going to do that today. So I generally use this if there's something that I'm doing that involves a lot of different steps and it's inside of Google. I will script it out just to avoid me making errors. But it also, in the long run, will save me time as well. You can automate things by using triggers. So you can have things run at a certain time, or run every time this form is submitted, do this thing. So I use it to save time, but I also use it to take the human element out of the process. The easiest way to get into this is by using the macros in Google Sheets. So that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to go in and out of this presentation just so that I can show you this. But so if you create a new Google Sheet, and one of the easiest ways to do that is simply by typing sheets.new in your Chrome browser. It will get you a new Google Sheet that pops up. And I like using Google Sheets for app scripting as much as possible because it's easy to point to a specific spot in the document. Every cell has an identifier. If you're trying to do it in a Google Doc or a Google Slide, it's just not as precise for me. So whether it's I'm getting data out of a Google Sheet or I'm putting data in a cell, it's just a lot easier to specify that. So when you're inside a Google Sheet, if you go up to the Tools menu and come down to Macros, you'll see that you have the ability to record a macro. So one of the ways that I generally will start doing this is, so if you've ever created a Google form that then writes to a Google Sheet, by default, that you're stuck with the formatting that comes with that sheet. And I was reminded of that when you pulled up the list of vendors. So it doesn't auto-wrap, every time you're doing this stuff. I use this process a lot on a Google form. So, you could have, I don't know, I'll just type timestamp, name, whatever else you're gonna have on there. If there's something that I want to always happen every time a form comes in, I can use the macros to record that process and then set up a trigger that says, every time as a form is submitted, do this. And so then I don't have to go in and do those things over and over. Just to show you the process, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna say Tools, Macros, Record a Macro. And so now every single thing that I do at this point until I click Save down here at the bottom, it's gonna record the Google App script that goes behind what I'm doing. So it's almost like a little wizard for Google App script. So like if I wanted to have this whole first row be bold, I can now click on that first row, and right now it's recorded what that is in Google App script. And if I want to make it bold, I can click bold. And if I want to freeze that first row, I can freeze that first row. And so now if I come down and I click Save, it asks me for a name. I can also set up a keyboard shortcut. So if that fits better in your workflow, you can do that as well. I'm just going to say bold header. And if I come into now, I can click on Edit Script down here at the bottom, or I can go to Tools, Macros, Manage Macros. Or used to let me in there. There we go. Edit. And so those steps that I just did, that's what it looks like in Google Apps Script. So it creates a JavaScript function. It connects to the sheet. So then it selected the first row, that's where the 1:1 is. And then for that section that was selected, it set the font weight to bold, and then it froze the row. So sometimes what I'll do if I'm writing a complicated script, I'll just go do it in the macros and then kind of learn from that process. So that's just a very general overview of what that is there. If you want to play around with that, you can make a copy of that sheet, or you go to that short URL and you can practice that process. So there's just a sheet there with some headers. There's a slide that kind of goes through that process if you want to use that as you practice it. You notice when I named the function, I did the first name, the first word lowercase, I didn't use a space, and then I did an uppercase word that's in programming language, camel case. And I like attaching a visual to that, so now if you were not familiar with camel case, you will think camel. You may not remember what that means, but at least it's there, right? And I'm always reminded of the Wednesday hump day camel that John was so enamored with. Okay.
Mike.
So if you ever want to come back and use that macro again, just manually, you can do so. So let's say that, I'm back out of that. So now I'm on the sheet as if nothing happened. Let me zoom in on this a little bit here. If I now, because I recorded that macro, if I come into macros and I choose that function that I created, the first time you have to authorize it because you're giving that script that you just wrote permission to do what you told it to do. And so I'll say continue, choose my account. And so it just did that. So if I undo it again, now I don't have to authorize it, but I'll show you how fast it goes. Boom. And it did all of those steps.
So would that be saved in your Google account?
So it depends.
Okay.
And that's kind of the net. Sorry, you didn't even plan that. You were just feeding right into what comes next. Okay. So where we looked at that script, that's called the script editor in Google. And so you have two different types of scripts. So you have one that's called container bound. So when you're on that specific Google sheet, like this one, and I created a macro, it's bound to that sheet. You can also create scripts that way. you can go to that Google Sheet and come up to Tools, Script Editor, and now whatever I make can only be accessed by that sheet. I would not be able to find that in my Google Drive because I would have to actually use that document. However, you can go to script.google.com and you can create a script that is a standalone script that you could use in any document. When I work on something that I know I'm going to have different documents attached to, I'll generally do it this way. That gets more into the complex side of it, beyond the getting started phase. But so, container-bound scripts, you cannot share a container-bound script. You have to share the container. So like if I wanted to share this script, if I wanted to share that script with you, I'd have to share the Google Sheet that it's attached to. And it kind of piggybacks on it. However, if I'm going to share one that is standalone, I can do that. I can share it like anything else. It's found in my Google Drive. One of the big gotchas that luckily there are some alerts built into it is that Google Apps Script does not autosave. Everything else in Google autosaves, this does not autosave. But it reminds you of that. So like if I were to come in here and just change something, you can always tell if you saved it by looking for the little red asterisk. If that's there, you have not saved. We'll save that. All right, let me get back over here so I don't get too far off track here. Okay, so there are some templates that I'd like for you to download. So if you get to this slide of that slide deck, or you can use these short URLs, bit.lys, and one is GAS 1019 and one is GAS 1019B. So those will get you to a forced copy. Oh, that one doesn't. Hang on a second. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, I'm not going to get that here, but okay, I see our anonymous animals over here. Let's see, we've got an ibex, a quagga, and a walrus, kangaroo. Ooh, there's an anonymous skunk in here. Okay, but so you will notice that on this set of files here, you'll see the little padlock. That means that you can't edit this. And I can't edit it as well because I made it with a different one of my Google accounts because I didn't want to ever accidentally edit it when I was doing these sessions. This is something that I could not specifically share with you. So what you have to do is you have to come to File, Make a Copy. The other thing you can't do in Google Apps Script is force a copy by doing the /copy at the end. You can't do that either. So you have to come in here and say make a copy. And so now you have a copy that you can edit. And then the other one forces you to make a copy of a Google Sheet, and that has a bound script to it. I'm going to do that as well. And it's going to look something like that. So while you're making those, I'll talk about the template a little bit. So what I've done is I've taken a procedure and I've broken it down into 5 levels of difficulty. So one is going to start just using the script itself. By the time you get to the end, you're tying it into a Google Sheet and the contents in the Google Sheet. You're even writing back to the Google Sheet. You're even adding a little menu to your Google Sheet to run the function. I have simple versions of the script. If you just, whichever one you're, the first one that you're on, version 2.gs and version 1.gs is just a simple bit of script, not much explanation. If you go to the version that says _comments down here at the end, you'll see there's a whole lot more in there. It's just comments that explain what's happening in there. So if you really want to get into the why of why this works, that's the place for you. But generally, in a session like this is where we spend most of our time. All right, so if you find the one that you copied that says G1A, send emails. And if you click on version 1.gs. So what this function is going to do is you're going to send an email based on the information that's in the script. So if you think about some add-ons that allow you to do that, this is what happens behind the scenes. So the first thing you're going to do is where it says put an email address inside these quotation marks. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to put an email address inside those quotation marks. I would suggest using one that you can see the recipient, that you can be the recipient of. It can be the one that you send it with as well. It's just you may have to go to your sent mail to see it, depending on how your filters are. So I'm going to use my work email address. And then put the subject of your email inside the second set of quotation marks. How is that for nice and clear, direct instructions? So whatever you put inside these quotation marks would be the subject of the email that this script sends. Here is my email sent by script. And then put the text body of your email inside the next set of quotation marks. This particular method of sending the email does not let you do HTML. There are different ones that let you do HTML and really build it out further. This one does not. It's just text. So, howdy. Here it is. Okay. So what that's going to do is it knows to contact the Gmail app inside the script. It knows it's going to send an email, and it's got the 3 things it requires to do that: the recipient, the subject, and the body. So down here, there's a logger.log. That lets you kind of keep track of what's happening. Like if I set up this script and use Justin's email to send it to, I would be able to go into my sent mail and see it sent, but there's nothing in the script that's going to say, ta-da, your email was sent. That's what the logger.log does. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to say, email was sent. Notice it's not been saved. See the red. So I'm going to click save. Keyboard shortcut's the same. And now I want to run that function. And so on my toolbar up here, there's a little play button. The first time you hit this, you got to authorize the script because it's got to have permission to get into your Google account. So I'm going to click run. It's going to say you got to authorize it. Now, this looks scary. It's not scary. I'm going to come back over to my slide deck. I'm going to show you what that means. Where's that at? I have it on here somewhere. There it is. Okay. So once that comes up, it's basically telling you that the owner of this script has not verified this script with Google. Now, if this is a stranger script, somebody you have no idea who it is, I would not authorize this, okay? You just wrote this yourself. Hopefully you can trust yourself. Mm-hmm. And if it was one I wrote, I would hope that you would trust me. But so the way to authorize that is to click on the advanced link. and then click on go to and choose your script. Even though it says it's unsafe, it doesn't mean that there's some hidden malware in there. It's just that be sure that you really trust this. I'm gonna click that. And so now it's gonna say, here's what this script is asking permission to do. It's asking to get into your Gmail and send an email from you. So I'm gonna click allow. And so it actually just sent that email. And I can tell that the script ran by coming up and looking at the logs. That's under view, logs, and it should say email was sent. I could have put supercalifragilisticexpialidocious in the logger.log and it would show that there. So it only does what you tell it to do. But then I can go over to my email, which I'm not going to pull up right now because I am far from inbox 0, and it might throw you into like a tizzy fit, some of you. But there's an email now sitting, and I'm not going to open up my work email because I was out yesterday, so it's probably really full of stuff. But there was an email that was sent. And hopefully if yours sent, you can check that and you can see that the email successfully went. So the version 2 is a very similar process, except instead of just putting in the stuff, you're actually assigning it to a variable. So we're gradually working up to the point where we're going to use a Google Sheet to do this with. So I'm just going to really quickly put this in here. And so what this is going to do now is I've defined what the email address is, the recipient. I've defined the subject. I've defined the body. But this time when it runs that function, it's going to reach up to the variable and grab the contents. And there's a reason why, which you'll see in just a little bit. And then I changed the logger a little bit so that it uses those values inside of the logger. So if I run this now, it's not going to ask me for permission to use Gmail because I've already authorized the script. You don't have to do it every time you edit. You only have to do it when you add new permissions to it, if you want to interact with other things. And so now if I go to view and logs, there's my logger. Email was sent with the subject and who it was sent to. And then I will do this just to show you. And so there's the email waiting for me. And there's my subject and my email body. And so version 3 through 5 are in that other template because they go through some more processes that use the Google Sheet. So find the document that involves G1B-send emails part 2. And it's going to be a copy that you made. And so if you need that again, just pop back over to the slide deck and grab that second template. While I'm over here on the slide deck, I'll just show you a couple of things here. So whenever I'm dealing with, especially with Google Apps Script, I don't remember most of this stuff. There's an autocomplete that's inside of the Google Apps Script editor that's helpful, but very frequently I'm going over to Google and searching for Google Apps Script to do this, and then I'll go grab somebody's code and put it in there. It's more important that you analyze the code and kind of start to understand what it does rather than memorizing the different parts of it. I'm going to skip that. Sometimes script doesn't work. You'll see a little red bar that shows up there when script doesn't work. Frequently, I've deleted a set of brackets, or I've removed a semicolon, or I've deleted one of the quotation marks or something like that. And again, I don't know what all of these error messages do, but I will frequently Google it and then try to figure out how I broke it. Okay, so this is version 3. So what version 3 is going to do is it's going to tie into that Google Sheet just a little bit more. So I'm going to come over, and here's my Google Sheet. Let me change the view on that a little bit here. All right, so here's the Google Sheet. I need to get to the script that's attached to it. So I'm going to use the Tools menu, and I'm going to go to the Script Editor. And that's going to open the script that is container bound to that Google Sheet. And so in this one, you will see now in the side, there's version 3, version 4, version 5. There's a version that's nice and simple, but there's also a version that has the comments attached. I would avoid the ones with the comments, at least for right now, and go to the simple one. So here's version 3. So what version 3 does is it connects to the spreadsheet. There's a bit of code that requires that. It connects to the active sheet, so that's the sheet that you're on at the time. It finds the value in certain cells. So it's going to find the value that's in A2, and it's going to assign that to the variable that is the recipient. So I'm not manually putting in the email address in the script. I'm saying go over to the Google Sheet, get that, and put it in here. And then B2 is the subject. It's going to grab it from the Google Sheet and bring it back in. And then the text is in C2. And so it's almost like version 2, except you're going over to the sheet to get the stuff. And then it's going to send the email. And I wanted to show an example of how you can have more than one logger message. Even though you're just running the script once, you can break it down like that. So I'm going to click send or run. And because I'm on a new file this time, this is the one that's bound to that sheet, I should get a message asking me to authorize it. There it is. Whew. Okay. So I'm going to review the permissions, and then this time I'll still get the message that says it's not verified. This time, instead of just getting to Gmail, it's also got to access Google Sheets, because it's got to go over there and it's got to read what's on that sheet. And to do that, you have to give it permission. And so what it just did was it reached over to this sheet, it looked at A2, it said that's my recipient, B2, that's my subject, C2, that's the body, and it sent that email. And so that means I've got to pull up my mail. And so there's the email that just got sent 0 minutes ago. So that's version 3. What version 4 does, because on this sheet, I've got 2 rows of data. You could have, 40 rows of data. You want to send a specific email to each parent of a kid, and you want it to be custom to that kid. But you don't want to sit there and write those emails all over and over and over. Or maybe you've got data in a spreadsheet that's specific by teacher that you want to bring into a sheet that has their email address, and you want to send that information to the teacher. So there's a lot of options here, but the main goal is it's going to loop through this sheet, and it's going to send those emails based on what's on each row. And so the script for that still connects to the sheet. It still gets that sheet. It gets the last row that's got data on it. That tells the loop when to stop. And then it's going to use a JavaScript loop. So if you're not familiar with JavaScript, here's what it does. It's going to start, this example starts with row 2. And it knows where the last row is because we ran that little script. And then it's going to perform a function, and then it's going to add 1 to the row. And then it's going to do it again. And it's going to add 1 to the row. And it's going to keep doing that until it gets to that last row. Well, really, till last row plus 1, and then it knows to stop.
So the emails that are sent, are they going to show being sent from your Google account?
Yes.
Is there a way to make it look like it came from like your school account, for example?
If you would just run it off of your school account, but I mean, there are more complex versions of this. You can't necessarily like fake send it from another account, but you can say something like, make the reply address no reply at whatever, so that people wouldn't, all
or maybe kind of tweak what it looks like what it says it came from, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Trying to think because it'll be about my personal Gmail account.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And so what's going to happen for each row is it's going to reach over and it's going to grab the value that's on that row, except it's going to be in the first column. So instead of where I said A2, it's going to get the second row and it's going to get the first column. It's a little bit different than looking at it in what a spreadsheet language is called A1 notation. This is actually row and column notation. So it's going to get that row, column 1, is going to be the recipient. That row, column 2, is going to be the subject. That row, column 3, is going to be the body. And so it's going to send that email, write it to the log, and then it repeats and it says, have we gotten to the last row plus 1 yet? No, do it again. Have we gotten to the last row plus 1? No, do it again. And when it gets there, it just stops when it gets to the last row plus 1. So I'm going to click run. And of course, this part would take longer depending on how many emails you have in the sheet. There are quotas to the number of emails that you can send on your Google account. You may not have known that. There is a link somewhere in here. I think I ran into this when I did it in my session. I will just type Gmail quotas. So there are different quotas for different parts of the function. Basically, this is that if you're gonna send the same email to a lot of different people, if you have them in a group, use the group email, because then it counts as one email as opposed to 50 emails for the 50 people in the group. Because on a personal consumer Google account, there's a lower limit. For your school account, there's a higher limit, like maybe 1,000, I think, something like that. Business accounts that actually pay for theirs have larger ones. But sending to groups makes it a little bit more manageable. But so now, if I go to my sent mail, there should be 2 emails there, and one of them is, I already marked red, so there's the 2 emails that I sent. And then, so that's the 4th version. The 5th version gets much more complex and actually has some comments in the simple version. So it does a lot of the same stuff. It loops through the rows. It does all of that stuff. But note that if I wanted to send this, like maybe I want to come back and add somebody to this list. I forgot that I needed to send Johnny's mom this message. If I came over and added Johnny's mom, and I went and ran the script, everybody on that sheet is gonna get that email again, which, you know, you don't need to deal with that. So what version 5 does, one of the things it does, is it writes a message to this confirmation column. And then it says, when it's in that loop, it says, if there's something in that confirmation column, just skip that row. Don't send that email. And so it'll just loop through your sheet until it finds a blank cell and it'll run that row. But another thing, well, that's this part of it. There's a little bit of an addition there. But so that's what that does. It gets the part of the Google, the JavaScript is that it gets the date. And so what it writes to the confirmation cell is email was sent to so-and-so on, and it gets that date stamp. So if I were to run this right now, I'll come over here, you'll see it pops up when that email gets sent. And so now if I were to run it again, it's just gonna skip those rows. So if I came over and I added and I came over here to the script and I ran it again, it's skipping those other two, but it got to that third one. And you could tell because the timestamps aren't right there beside each other. Now, that requires you to actually open the script and click the play button. If you're gonna, set this up for teachers to use, yeah, you don't want that, right? You want something up here that lets them do that. And so that's also part of this version 5. If you scroll down, there's actually one that says, here's the code, and it will say how to toggle the comment. So the lines that have the slashes in front of it are the comments. If there's code in here, like this one here, that has the slashes, it's not going to run it. But if you want to run that code, you just take off those things.
You can also set up a trigger that'll do the same thing, and that way it'll just look for it and see if it's got anything. Yeah.
So there's another one down here. This is the menu down here. So there's 2 different ways you can do a menu. You can do a menu where it sits up here right in front of your face, which is probably good if you're going to do this for teachers. Or you can put it under the add-ons menu, but then they have to remember to go to add-ons and click down. So frequently when I do this, honestly, even for myself, I'll just make it its own little menu item. And so this first one here, if I were to uncomment that, it's going to, on that sheet that I'm on, every time that sheet gets opened, the on open trigger, it's going to add a menu to my add-on menu that says it's going to be called this, the name of my project, and it's going to, underneath it, say send all the emails, and if I chose it, it's going to run that function. So I'm going to come over here and just delete some of those so that it'll actually send the email again, because it just has to be empty. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to toggle those comments. I'm going to reload this sheet. And then if you, up here under add-ons, there it is, down here at the bottom, G1B send emails part 2. It's because this project is called that, so if you wanted it to be something different, you'd name the project different. But if I come over here and I say send all the emails, and then watch up here, and it sends the emails. So it just did going over to the script and hitting run without me having to do that. And so then another way to do that is own menu that says send emails and use the same stuff. So I'm gonna come over here, comment that out, save, and now I'm gonna reload that. And this time, instead of having to go to add-ons, it actually created my menu item that says send emails. And I can click there and say, send all emails. And then I look at that confirmation column and it sent those emails. So you can get more complex with it. There are a lot of other things you can do with this. This is just that basic level, but that's kind of that's the workflow of version 5 there. They do have a developer's reference guide that has a lot more information in there about it. But I've also given you a list of some additional resources. This is kind of, now that I'm done with my dissertation, this is kind of my new focus, is getting deeper into AppScript, because I've been using it in my district quite a bit. We actually ran our PD system on a kind of hacked together version of this last year. And then we use it right now in my district a lot for our EL learners have individual learning plans, and we have those organized in a Google Sheet. And every time we want to make a new one, it's got a lot of pages to the sheet, and it brings in information from our student information system. And I've got it set up as a script. I say make a new IOP, and it reaches over and it grabs my template file, and it reaches over to my information from my SIS, and it puts them together, and it puts it in the right place, and shares it with the right people, and locks the right things, and does all of that stuff. And so that has saved me a lot of time. Ben Collins is my new favorite. He's got a lot of really great stuff. If you have to start anywhere, I'd start with that one. I will make him a gold star. Okay. But so there's a lot of stuff in there. Then there's some kind of geeky extensions that you can add if you get really into it. And so that's the stuff we just did. Talked a little bit about gas and looked at the templates and did all that kind of stuff. And then I always say thank you. So thank you.
Hey, there's one that I've used for a couple of years that they actually updated this year. It's called Form Emailer, and I put it on the agenda. We here's what I use it for. You know, everyone has to take a bloodborne pathogens quiz, okay, every year. So we now send I created a form. I did this form emailer to where when a teacher goes into the form and takes the quiz, the script automatically calculates their score and sends both them and the nurse what they got, so the nurse can file it for OSHA, which is nice. And then we also use it for our Brace art competition. So teachers have to submit all of their art things for all of the students that are competing in our art contest that we have every year. And then once they hit submit, it sends them automatically everything that they submitted and everything that they need to make sure that they've got. And I'm telling you, it is so wonderful. It is fabulous.
There are two that we use quite frequently when we have simpler tasks like this.
Mm-hmm.
One is called Form Mule, and then that one lets you kind of set up different levels of templates based on what's in the Google Sheet. We use that for our help desk. We've built out a help desk thing in there that when the teachers submit the help ticket, it writes it to the sheet and it emails it to our staff who needs it. But it also sends a copy to the teacher so they remember they actually submitted the ticket. And then we have it set up so that once we address the ticket, we go back into the sheet and we can put what we did and send the email back and close the ticket kind of thing. Another one is Autocrat. So that one actually lets you connect the information that's in that form to a Google Doc template or a Google Slides template. If any of you came to Ed Camp Memphis or Summer Institute, when I made those certificates, it was all using Autocrat. all the stuff was in a Google Sheet. I clicked a button and it sent all the stuff.
Great.
But what I find is when I try to layer too many add-ons onto one function thing at the same, they start to bump heads. And so that's where I really started to get into, I want this thing to work, but this is causing this problem. How about I just write the script that takes what I need from this and what I need from this, and have not developed those things out to where they could actually be add-ons for other people to use, because that just opens up too many options. I like just solving my problem. But if you do run into problems that you're like, help me think through this and kind of point me to what I might need, hit me up. That's what I love to do. I love to sit down and brainstorm and try to come up with solutions. Hopefully it's helpful.
Great ideas. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everybody. See you in February. A few months. Holiday season coming up. Get ready. Christmas sales already started today.
Right.